It's Dr. T, and in this episode, we're answering the question, why are so many kids struggling in our public schools today? Well, it all starts with funding. Schools are funded at the local level, so the taxes that are paid into the school by every individual are linked to the property values, as most of us know. And it's also related to the overall economic health of the community, so the business tax base has something to do with it as well. And so what that means is that there's great inequality across schools in terms of how they are funded. People know this, they recognize this, because when they go to buy houses, if you have the money to buy a house in a better school district, that's where you're going to look. Even if you don't have children, certainly a lot of people will do that for their children's benefit, but even if you don't have children, you know it's better for the resale value if you're in a good school district, because that is one of the number one driving forces or factors that people look at when they're trying to decide where to buy a home. So to understand where we are right now in terms of schools, we've had some long-standing problems, of course. This inequality in funding has meant that we've had inequality in performance. And so that's linked to social class. The poorer school districts have a harder time providing for the children and their education because they don't have the resources. There's also been inequality based on race because there's a link between race and class. Race has often been used as kind of a proxy for class because we have a long history of discrimination in housing and in jobs. That means that people of color are more likely to live below the poverty line and on average have lower incomes than those who identify as white. Now, in 2001, when George W. Bush was president, Congress passed the No Child Left Behind Act. And this was supposed to solve all these problems. The way the problem was framed is that there wasn't enough accountability in education. In other words, it was like, show me what you're doing with the money. Show me the money is well spent. And the way that they came up with to show was to increase the standardized testing that was taking place. Now, of course, this testing goes back to my childhood at least. I took standardized tests. But there was even more at this point that was put in place. Now, I'll give you one guess. So you're thinking about who frames these problems. We talked about last time. The states where these testing companies are based are in Texas, which is coincidentally the state that, of course, George W. Bush hailed from. So what happens is now the tail is wagging the dog. We have teachers teaching to the test. We've known this is a problem for a long period of time. I can tell from my personal experience as a college professor, the kind of writing that people were teaching in middle school and high school was teaching them to be able to write the data-based question in these standardized tests. It was not teaching them to write sort of a full-fledged essay. So I felt like when students came to me in college, I was trying to teach them to write all over again. I'm not an English professor, but I am a strong writer. And that was a lot of work for me to try to overcome the writing that they were not getting because they were focusing on a particular style of writing for these tests. The teaching to the test also means that lesson plans are packed. There's no time to slow down. And we all know that children learn in different ways and at different paces. And so the kids that take a little extra time to learn will get left behind because teachers cannot slow down. They get punished if they don't do well on these tests. And so they have to try to get students through this curriculum. This push, this movement towards more accountability and more standardized testing in the name of accountability has dramatically changed the school day. So when I was a child in elementary school 50 years ago, I went to school from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., just like most kids do, and I had 3 recesses. I had a 15-minute recess in the morning, a 15-minute recess in the afternoon, and I had a full hour for lunch. A half an hour to eat my lunch at a sane pace, and a half an hour to play outside, rain, shine, snow, wind, whatever. Also, the other thing we've seen in this time frame is cuts to lots of things that are considered extra, like music, art, and sports. Now, just to make the case for music out of those 3, doing well in music is also linked to doing well in math, but that seems to be ignored in these changes that are being made. So in this classroom environment, kids that don't get it on that first pass may not get it at all. Teachers may leave them behind. Students who engage in problem behaviors, who have just a lot of nervous energy, who are learners that have to learn by moving, who maybe are not quite as emotionally mature to sit still and pay attention, or just plain art, paper and pencil learners. They need other ways of being stimulated. They have become problems in the classroom because they take the teacher's attention away from having to move through this curriculum at a rapid pace. And it's a problem for schools because they're terrified they're going to lose their funding if their test scores fall below a certain level, because No Child Left Behind punishes the schools that need help the most. Now, this has had other consequences, because what has also been happening in this time frame is you get a lot more children on medication, particularly for ADD and ADHD. And so teachers are now saying to parents, I think your child should be tested because he or she won't sit still in the class. And so there's been a lot of criticism that these changes in the school environment have led schools to push parents who don't know what's going on in the classroom, they're not there, to seek medication for their children when maybe they just need a learning environment that is more conducive to different ways that people learn, because humans are different. There's a range. Solutions, what can we do? Well, if we look around the world, schools with the best educational systems in the world do not use standardized testing, or they use it very little. In a lot of places, again, where they lead the nation in reading and math and all those sorts of measures that we use, they wait until the age of 7 to start school. One thing we could do that has been demonstrated over and over and over in the research on education is to cap classrooms at 15 students for kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, because the research shows us that if a child learns to read by third grade, they're going to be on a path for success. Conversely, if children do not learn to read by third grade, they're more likely to end up dropping out of school. They're more likely to end up in prison. They're more likely to end up on public assistance, or what we call welfare. So reading is crucial. We know this, and we could make sure every child learns to read by third grade if we kept the classroom sizes small, but we don't do that because we say we don't have the money. And of course, that gets us to the most important thing of all: equalize funding across the board, full stop. The kind of education a child gets should not depend upon how much money their parents have, whether they can afford to live in a wealthier school district. This is our most important resource, right? People are our most important resource moving forward. If we don't ensure that every child has the education they need, that's on us. And we have the capacity to do it. What we need is the agreement, the consensus, the political will to spend the money to do it.